So, this is a revision video on osmosis. I know some students find this challenging, so I thought I'd take you through step by step. This is going to be a relatively longish video, maybe beyond 10 minutes, just simply because I want to deal with the idea of water potential and describing that, and then some terminology that you'll encounter around osmosis, like less negative, more negative water potential, and hypertonic, hypotonic, isotonic as well. So hopefully after you've gone through this video, you feel more confident with those phrasings and how to approach an osmosis question. So as usual with these videos, I want you to answer some questions or have a go at the start as sort of a revision task. And then we will go through answers and the description. So pause now and have a go at those questions, and then we'll go through the description. So, to begin with, what is osmosis? The fundamental thing with all of this. So your answer should look something like this. And so you'll notice I've put some key points in bold. It's diffusion of water. It's across a selectively permeable membrane or barrier. You can also say partially permeable. And it's from a high water potential to a low water potential. So, question 2, what's the water potential of pure water? Well, let's use a diagram. Let's say we've got some pure water here. We've got some water molecules. The water potential of pure water is 0 kilopascals. So remember, the units for water potential are kilopascals, and the symbol is psi, this fork symbol. And remember that pure water has the highest possible water potential. So 0 is the highest possible water potential. You cannot get a value for water potential greater than that. That's a very useful thing to remember. So next up, how does the addition of a solute to a solution affect the water potential of that solution? Well, let's go back to our diagram. Let's put a selectively permeable membrane there and add in, well, let's call that side A with our pure water and B, and then add in a solution. And in that solution, we've got solute, for instance, glucose. The addition of that solute reduces the water potential of that solution. So reduces the water potential. And so that makes the water potential more negative. And we'll talk more about that phrasing of more and less negative a little later. So if we were to give this a value, then perhaps we might have something like -10. It would be a minus number, whatever, but we'll give it -10 kilopascals in this example. So that would mean that A has a higher water potential than B, so water is diffusing by osmosis from A to B. And there's a good way or a good system, I think, for writing sentences when you're describing osmosis to use something like this. So I've put sort of 3 clear sections to your sentence that you should be using in different colours. So in red we start with the water potential of solution A is higher than solution B. So decide where the water potential is higher. So then you know there's net diffusion from the higher to the lower. So in this case, so there's net diffusion of water by osmosis from A to B. Let's add in another selectively permeable membrane then, and we'll call this side C, and we'll add in another solution. Hopefully what you can see is there's more solute there. So what will that do to the water potential? It'll lower it. So let's give it a value. Let's call this, or give this a water potential of -50 kilopascals. So if we're going to compare B to C, in which direction would be the net diffusion of water by osmosis? Can you decide on that? It would be from B to C. And how would you describe that? Write a sentence to describe that. Pause and have a go. Okay, so your sentence should be this. So start by describing which side has a higher water potential. So B is higher than solution C. So there's net diffusion of water by osmosis from B to C. Let's keep going. Another selectively permeable membrane. We'll call that side D. And here's another solution. So let's compare C to D. Is the water potential going to be higher or lower? Perhaps looking at A, B, C, and D, you can decide on a sensible value for the water potential here. So -3 would be sensible. There's less solute than in B, so it's going to be higher than in B. So, question for you. Can you describe osmosis between C and D? Pause and have a go. So, hopefully you worked out there will be net diffusion of water by osmosis from D to C, and your sentence should be this. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. Hopefully that's very clear. Now, there's an extra bit to this, and that's the terminology that comes along with osmosis. So there are different ways of describing solutions. And I think it's worth us just taking a look at this. So if you encounter an exam question with this sort of phrasing, you can work it out. So sometimes the water potential can be described as more negative. And so that means the water potential is actually lower if it's more negative. And conversely, it can be described as less negative. And so what that really means is there is a higher water potential. So let's just take a look at how to use this terminology or how it might be used. So let's compare B to A. How might we write this in terms of more negative or less negative? Or we would write it like this. So B has a more negative, it's -10, water potential than solution A, which is 0. So it is more negative. Let's have another example. Let's compare A to B, the other way around. Well, A is 0, B is -10, so solution A has a less negative water potential than solution B. You have a go. Compare C to B. Write a sentence to describe that in terms of more or less negative water potential. So this is what your sentence should be. So the water potential in C is -50. From comparing it to B, it's -10. So C has a more negative water potential than solution B. Have another go. Compare C to D. Pause and write a sentence. Okay. Hopefully you've written this. Solution D, -3. We're comparing it to C, which is -50. So solution D has a less negative water potential than solution C. So it's just a case of just looking carefully at the information and working that out. And once you know that, you know which is a higher, which is a lower, and you can get on then to writing your sentence to describe net diffusion of water by osmosis. Okay, one more sort of piece of terminology that you might encounter that's important for us to just take a quick look at. So this is this idea of hypertonic, hypotonic, and isotonic. Maybe you know what these already mean. Can you write down what each of these mean in terms of solute concentration. Here's a quick test. So pause and write what each of these mean in terms of solute concentration. So hopefully what you wrote was that in a hypertonic solution, that means it's higher solute concentration compared to something else. Hypo, think of hypothermic, being very cold. Lower solute concentration. And isotonic, means the same solute concentration. So let's look at this as an example. So these tend to be comparative phrases, so they're comparing something to something else. So let's compare solution B to solution A. So there's more solute in solution B, so it's hypertonic compared with solution A. What does that mean? Well, I've just said solution B has a higher solute concentration than solution A. And then we can work through the logical steps to work out what's going on. So that means the water potential is higher in solution A because it has less solute. We can state that. And we can finish off our description then, our sentence to describe net diffusion of osmosis. So there's net diffusion of water by osmosis from A to B. So I think it's just going through those simple logical steps in order to work out which way osmosis is going. So do it step by step if you're presented with this type of information. So let's give you an example. So I'm not going to refer to any of these now. I'm not going to give you the help of the pictures. I want you to just have a go at answering this, working out which direction osmosis is occurring in these solutions. Solution E is hypotonic compared with solution F. So go through those steps I described. So pause and tell me in which direction there is net diffusion of water by osmosis in this example. Okay, so hopefully what you worked out is if solution E is hypotonic compared with solution F, it has a lower solute concentration compared with solution F. That's what it's telling you. So if it has a lower solute concentration, what does that mean for its water potential? It has a higher water potential than solution F. So if there's a higher water potential, we know water diffuses by osmosis from a higher to a lower water potential. So there'll be net diffusion of water from E to F. So hopefully that helps. Remember, ISO is the same. So if there's the same, there's no overall net diffusion of water by osmosis. There will be movement of water, but there's overall no net diffusion with isotonic solutions. Okay, so hopefully that helped. That covered a lot of the terminology and processes of osmosis. If you feel still underconfident about that, then revisit the video. Keep visiting, keep testing yourself until you are confident.